Kinsey.
And this is Milton.
And you're listening to
Brazilianisms.
episode
19.
Here we go. So, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Portuguese language. Isn't that exciting? That's your favorite topic, right?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting language. Where should we start? The history?
You have taken some notes, so you start from where you think it's better, and I'll go along with you.
Okay. Well, it's a Romance language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's descended from Latin.
Right.
So it's in the same family of languages as French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian, Galician, Catalan, Rheto-Romansh. Yeah, anyway, all those things.
Mm.
One interesting thing about the history is if you look at a map, you'll see Portugal it's in western Spain, and there's a mountain range separating it from Spain. So when the Romans were out conquering land, they conquered Spain first, and then from Spain, then they had to cross the mountain range into Portugal. So there was a delay. They took longer to get to Portugal, and then when the Roman Empire fell, they withdrew first from Portugal and then from Spain. So they were in total they were less time in Portugal. So there is more influence still remaining from the original inhabitants of the area that's Portugal than there is from the rest of the Iberian Peninsula. And, for example, you have words in Portuguese that are very different from Spanish. The example I always like to give is the word for dog. How do you say dog?
Cachorro.
Yeah. And that's a Basque word. You don't find that in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a very interesting thing about Portuguese, which I think is different from all other Indo-European languages, is days of the week. I mean, in the other languages, they're named after gods.
Or planets, huh?
Because the planets are named after gods.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wednesday would be Woden's Day. Odin or Woden, depending on how you say him. In the comic book, he's Odin, but he's also called Woden, and, he's a Norse god, Thor's father, and all that stuff. Anyway, yeah, so that's not so interesting. But what is interesting is in Portuguese, only Saturday and Sunday. They're similar to Spanish, and they got Roman names. Saturday is sábado, and Sunday is domingo.
Mm-hmm.
Like Spanish. But then, what is Monday?
Segunda.
What's the whole name?
Segunda-feira.
Right. And segunda means second.
Mm-hmm.
And what's Tuesday?
Terça ou terça-feira.
Yeah, terça or terça-feira. Yeah. And then Wednesday?
Quarta-feira.
Thursday?
Quinta-feira.
And Friday?
Sexta-feira.
Yeah. So they're all numbered.
Mm-hmm.
Monday is second, then Tuesday is third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I guess Sunday is considered first, although it's called domingo now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, so then they're numbered. First fair, second fair, third fair, because feira means fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is because the original inhabitants of what is today Portugal had market days. So these fairs refer to market days. And probably, I'm sure they didn't use a 7-day calendar, but they never reached the point where they completely adopted the Roman names for the weekdays. And also, but not just the Romans, then you have the Moors, and they went through the same thing. The Moors are, of course, like basically the Muslims. They invaded the Iberian Peninsula, but once again, they invaded Spain first, and then it took them some years to get to Portugal. And then when they were driven out first in Portugal, and then after that they were driven out in Spain. So they had a little less influence on Portuguese than they did on Spanish. Do you agree?
Sounds correct.
Okay. So Portuguese is, I don't know, it's similar to Spanish, but it has a slightly different linguistic history. And to the north of Portugal, you have Galicia or Galicia. I'm not sure actually how it's pronounced in English. How do you pronounce Galicia in English? Do you know?
Gaul?
No, that would be France.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well,
I
we
don't
don't.
know.
It's Gali. I think I tend to
Gaul
say,
would be Gallia in Portuguese.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I tend to think. I don't know. I say Galicia, but I think it's probably supposed to be Galicia, or the Spanish would call it Galicia. Very, very similar to continental Portuguese, but it's considered a different language. Just some interesting statistics about Portuguese, which I got from Wikipedia. How would you say Portuguese ranks in terms of number of speakers in the world?
I think Portuguese ranks as third most spoken language in the world.
Okay, according to Wikipedia, fourth.
Okay, so I was close.
Yeah, you were very close. And that's numbered by number of native speakers in the world. And according to Wikipedia, there are 250 million native speakers of Portuguese. Also, according to Wikipedia, there are 210 million native speakers.
Interesting.
Yeah. Someone should probably edit that. More interesting is Brazil is the only Portuguese-speaking country in South America, but 51% of the inhabitants of South America are native speakers of Portuguese.
That is also weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Brazil is very big.
Yeah.
There are 186 million native speakers in Brazil. Now, where is Portuguese spoken in the world? Well,
Let's see. Portugal?
Brazil. No, Brazil.
Okay, Brazil, Portugal, Angola, Cabo Verde.
Yeah. That we should probably say where these places are. People might not know.
Angola, Africa,
Yeah.
Cabo Verde, Africa.
Well, it's an island.
Yeah, it's an
It's
island.
near Africa.
Is it on the west coast?
West Coast, yeah.
Off the west coast. Mozambique?
Also in Africa.
Yeah. Where else?
There's one more country in Africa. And one more island near Africa.
Okay, you should help me out here.
Guinea-Bissau
Yeah, I thought.
in West Africa.
Okay.
And the island be Cabo Verde, is we say in English.
I said that.
Oh, okay. What you didn't say was São Tomé and Príncipe.
No, I did not.
Okay. Also, according to Wikipedia, they're saying Equatorial Guinea, that they speak not only Spanish there, but Portuguese. But I looked on the discussion page. They're having a debate about that. I lived in Cameroon for a year. I never heard anything about them speaking anything other than Spanish there, so I'm not sure about that.
And now Timor-Leste.
East Timor,
Uh-huh.
also Macau.
Former Portuguese colony, so Portuguese there must not be, so widespread, and it's only spoken by the elderly, I guess, no?
Yeah, and in official documents.
Yeah,
but
same thing in Goa in India.
in India, yeah. But it is recognized as an official language in Macau.
Though it's in decline.
Probably. And it has some interesting features you don't see in any other variety of Portuguese because it's heavily influenced by Chinese. One of them being the plurals. Apparently, I've never studied Mandarin or Cantonese, but apparently in Chinese to make the plural, instead of adding an ending to the word, you repeat the word.
Oh.
So if you're saying, like, the plural of dog, they would say dog, dog. Or in Portuguese, they would say cachorro, cachorro for dogs.
That's very weird.
Although probably they wouldn't. Cachorro is used more in Brazil nowadays, so they'd probably say cão. Cão, cão.
There are 3 cão-cãos. 3 cão-cão.
Yeah, exactly. Look at those 3 cão cão over there. So that's very interesting. If someone from Macau came to Brazil and started talking to people,
We would think that guy came out of a mental hospital.
also, apparently there's this wasn't on Wikipedia, but I have it on good authority that in Malaysia there's a Portuguese population. And I think that about covers it. I mean, of course, there are communities in New York. There's a large community of Portuguese speakers. But interestingly, North America is the only populated continent in the world that does not have Portuguese spoken as an official language anywhere. Although, yeah, Antarctica, obviously not. I'm thinking Australia? Don't know about that. Okay. Australia, I don't think so, but Malaysia's close to Australia, maybe. Anyway, I'm over-analyzing it. Now, Spanish is very close to Portuguese. Brazilians, with a little practice, can understand Spanish fairly well. But
we must be aware of the false cognates.
Yeah.
Which could put you in a lot of trouble.
But it's not very mutually intelligible. People who speak Spanish come to Brazil, and sometimes they're just totally mystified by what people are saying.
It's more likely that a Portuguese speaker will understand a Spanish speaker than otherwise.
Yeah, although there are exceptions.
Oh, yeah.
Depends on the individuals.
Do you know the reason?
There are a couple reasons.
Yeah, I do know you know the reasons.
Okay, but we'll get into them soon.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so that's very interesting. Also, Spanish, interestingly, until recently in Brazil, no one studied Spanish.
Now it's a major subject in the schools.
Yeah.
You know that, don't you?
Yeah. But when I was here in Brazil before, I think there were lots of language schools. And there was one language school that offered classes in Spanish, and probably they weren't even very big classes. And you just never would run into anyone who had any knowledge of Spanish. And now it's completely changed, I guess, because of Mercosul.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, which is like I guess an economic agreement, like NAFTA, NAFTA for us. And it's very good. And also, I've never understood why Brazilians wouldn't study Spanish, because it's so easy for someone who speaks Portuguese to learn Spanish. To just take a few classes, they could learn so much. Basically, what they have to learn is what are the differences between Spanish and Portuguese. So it's a very good idea for Brazilians to learn Spanish.
Just a curiosity here. When I was 14 years old, that was back in 1987, I had just finished my junior high school, and before moving on to high school, I could pick the language I wanted to study, which was English or French. So there was not Spanish, as you said before.
And you chose French.
Yeah, because I was already studying English at CCAA, which is a language school. And
I remember you brought your French book to class and showed it to us.
You're kidding me. You remember that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you were doing very well. You abandoned it later, but I mean, you had started English, I think, just the year before, and then you were starting on French, and you were, because I majored in French in college, so I could tell you were well on your way to having high proficiency in French, even though you were just starting, but then you just threw it all away.
Well, it was not that. It was just because I wanted to study French the following year, but there were not enough students interested, so they couldn't hold a group of one, so they had to drop it. And then I had nowhere else to study it, so I dropped it.
Yeah. Well, you could have gone to IBL to study French, but your father probably wouldn't have given you the money.
Yeah, but he was already paying a lot of money for
Marconi.
No, that is a municipal school, but he was spending a lot of money paying the English course for me, so I didn't even think about that or consider it.
Okay. And I know there's a German language school in Brazil called Goethe, except in Portuguese it's called Goethe. We'll talk about the sound shifts later, but
yeah, we you have to understand, kids. We Brazilianized, so to speak, the pronunciation.
But it's so Brazilianized that if a Brazilian were to go to Germany and say that they studied at the Goethe school, no German would even begin to...
Okay, it's just the same thing with the guy who did the review of your podcast. Bruce. Okay, I'm sorry, Bruce, but you mispronounced Kinsey's wife's name.
Simona.
And yes, but that's a natural thing. It's not your language, so you're...
But it was recognizable.
No, it was not, because I couldn't understand it when I heard it first. It took me, I had to listen to it 3 or 4 times before I could tell it was Simone. I'm honest with you. Okay. I'm being honest with you. It's not your fault. Forgive me for bringing it up. No offense there. It's a total natural thing. It's you're speaking a word which is you're not familiar with the sound. Okay, that's what I meant.
Okay, but the school's supposed to teach German, so you would think that.
I know, Kinsey, but I've never studied German in my life, so I go around telling people that the name of the school is Git.
Well, that's better. I mean, that's better than Gage.
I never heard anyone saying Gitch. Well, maybe because my father knows the very basics of German, and all the time he said it Git. So maybe I picked it from him.
Goethe.
So, yeah. Okay.
But yeah. Okay, yeah, but Brazilians call it. They call it Gage.
Okay.
Instituto Gage or something. Anyway, yeah, that's not really important. I just thought that was fun.
Well, it's nice to have funny things in the program. Otherwise, people are gonna get bored.
Uh-huh. Now, Brazil has a lot of dialects. Yes?
Well, I'd like to hear the rest of your sentence before I say anything. What do you consider a dialect? Tell me the examples before I say anything.
Okay, let me just say what I'm going to say then.
All right,
okay?
please.
Brazil has a lot of dialects.
Which are?
Let me say what I'm going to say, okay? Brazil has a lot of dialects. And that is a lot of dialectical differences in the way people speak from region to region.
All right, I agree with you.
And that is because Brazil is, first of all, a very old country. The older a country is, the more dialectical variation you get. And Brazil is older than the United States. Brazil was discovered by Álvares Cabral in 1500. And that was basically the beginning of Brazil. That was the first time you had people from Portugal coming over here. So that's 508 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The United States, of course, is, I mean, it wasn't until the 1600s you had people from Britain. I don't know. Anyway, Brazil is older than the U.S., has perhaps stronger dialectical variations. Also, the fact that it is so big keeps people separate. Although in Europe, you find, like in Italy, you find so many dialects it'll make your head spin.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when you're dealing with Italy, you're going back almost to the Roman Empire. So of course,
2,000 years.
Yeah. So, and in different dialects, you find different things. In the Northeast, it's kind of weird. It's more of a sing-song thing. I think it sounds a little bit more like singing, and it's a little closer to Spanish. The way people speak there. Do you agree with that? That it's a little closer to Spanish?
Which state? Could you pinpoint
Bahia.
a state?
Bahia.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't say it's close to Spanish because I've never studied Spanish as you did, so I can't compare.
Well, would you say it's closer to Spanish than Rio Grande do Sul?
Yeah.
Okay. But one thing I found I had trouble understanding people because even though, linguists will tell you that all dialects and all languages are equal in terms of expressing and clarity and everything, the thing is, when you're northeastern Brazil is the poorest region in the Western Hemisphere, so there's a lot of illiteracy. Oh, a good way to blow in the microphone. So there's a lot of illiteracy. And in places where there's a lot of illiteracy, people tend to mumble. So it's not, I'm not being a snob and looking down on their language saying that it's an inferior dialect. I'm just saying,
Here we go again.
I'm just saying that where there's a lot of illiteracy, people don't speak their dialect well. Now, if a lot of money suddenly were to flow into the Northeast and they were to build up these huge academies and have, in a generation, have a bunch of really well-educated Northeasterners, I'm sure that, yes, they'd speak very clearly and they would speak in their specific dialect. But the way it is now, hard to understand because they're not very bright and they don't have a lot of teeth and they go, rah, 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 rah. I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, aren't I? But I did spend time up there.
Where, in Bahia?
Yeah. No, in Sergipe.
Uh-huh.
But and that was
that's true.
That was doing volunteer work, and I really thought my Portuguese had gotten rusty because I had such a hard time understanding people. But then I came back here to Belo Horizonte, and all of a sudden everything was so clear. It was crystal clear. I could understand. So yeah, they're just not speaking clearly. Anyway, so that's the Northeast. Now in the South, you get a lot of influence. Well, you know that, I mean, people listening to this might know about the gauchos in Argentina, which go up into state of Rio Grande do Sul, maybe Santa Catarina a little bit, and they speak really deep down. They're sort of like Midwestern accent in the United States. That's how they talk. I'm going to get in trouble for saying that too.
Where exactly are you talking about? The people who live in close to the frontier?
What frontier?
With Argentina.
Yeah, sure.
Or Uruguay. Because the accent changes as you go toward as you
I'm talking about people in Rio Grande do Sul. I'm talking about typical speech patterns in Rio Grande do Sul.
Yeah, but it depends. If you're in the capital, so it's more subtle. But as you go
in all capitals,
inland,
it's more subtle.
Yeah. It gets worse.
Anyway, yeah, okay. I'm not trying to be.
I'm saying the obvious, but.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, and a lot of influence from Germans, Italians, and I mean, some Americans were there too. And it's interesting, some Portuguese R's in the south, and even as far north as São Paulo, which is still kind of south, they pronounce the R like an English R, like the verb to speak, which would be falar, F-A-L-A-R. Like I say falar because that's the right way to say it. But someone from São Paulo will very often say falar.
What makes you think that is the right way of saying it?
Because it's the way I learned.
All right. That's your reference.
I'm being facetious. Yeah, that's my reference, okay? But I think it's very weird because Italian obviously doesn't do that. German doesn't do that. So that must be from... And there were some... especially post-Civil War, there were some Southerners who went down there. And I guess that is influence from English. I mean, I don't know of any other Romance language, or even any language.
Well, how did English influence it?
Because you had these Americans going down there
But there are not plenty of Americans going there.
Well, how do you explain it?
I don't know how to explain, but I bet it's not because of Americans who moved to that region. I'll tell you one thing. You know, there were British who built railroads here in this state.
Okay, so the British didn't, but
they don't have the R.
Yeah, that's true. So where did the R come from?
I don't know, Kinsey. I'm sure not from Americans.
Well, no one else talks like that.
Well, if you go deep in, if you go inland, and here in this state, it gets worse. It's like in São Paulo. Depending where you are. You know, I've been to Uberlândia, and they have a horrible accent there.
Okay. Well,
they pronounce the R just like in São Paulo. Okay.
I'm just saying, the R's had to come from somewhere. I can't believe they just emerged spontaneously, because that would just be too weird.
But I'm assuring you it's not from Americans. I got a hunch it's not from them.
Okay. Well, if anyone knows, let us know, because I'm really curious about that.
But have you ever been to the south, like Rio Grande do Sul?
No.
Do you know how gaúchos speak? I'll try to
imitate one.
Yeah, but I'm sure gaúchos would say I'm exaggerating, or that's not the way they say it.
That's fine.
Give me a moment. I need to concentrate. Ay. I'll tell you an episode, and then I'll imitate one because there is a context. Remember when you were living in the youth hostel here? Mm-hmm. I went down there one day to see you, and I don't know what you were doing, but there were these two gaúcho guys, mm-hmm. and there was another girl, and there was a girl, and she asked one of them about the time. So this is how the conversation goes, and then you translate for the listeners.
Okay.
I'm going to speak Portuguese now. A menina perguntou as horas para deles. Aí ele falou: barbaridade, tanto mais pouco, tchê.
Barbaridade.
Yeah, they use this expression all the time. They instead of saying barbaridade, or they just go che. I know the che comes from the Argentinians and the Uruguayans.
Yeah, but I mean we're talking about vocabulary.
Okay, but this story, but I imitated the accent.
I'll say it again.
And then he told his friend what he had told the girl. Mas daí essa guria me perguntou, tia, que horas eram? Daí eu disse, tanto mais pouco, tia.
Why did they make such a big deal out of someone asking them what time it was?
It doesn't matter. He was just teasing the girl. This is just a story in which I remembered so I could imitate the guys.
Okay.
Does it sound weird the way they talk? I love it.
It sounds weird, but mostly what's weird for me is the choice of words.
All right.
I couldn't tell much. I couldn't detect much difference in the inflections from the way you were doing it. But it was interesting. It was definitely.
Well, they have to listen to a real Gaúcho speaking.
Yeah. Well, they show them in the soap operas.
Yeah, but aren't you going to tell the listeners what I just said? Because I only told half the story in English. Okay, let me do it.
Okay.
So one of the guys asked the girl what time it is, and he says, a little bit plus a little bit more, if that makes any sense at all in English.
But it doesn't even make sense in Portuguese because he's not answering her question.
Yeah, he's just teasing her. And then he was bragging about it. He was teasing the girl, and he told his friend. That's the whole thing.
I tease people when they ask me what time it is by telling them that it's howdy doody time.
It's what?
Howdy doody time.
Howdy doody time.
Yeah, but you probably won't get that reference.
Yeah, you need to clear that up. Clear it.
There was a marionette program back in
There was a what? A marionette. Okay.
Yeah, and the puppet, and his name was Howdy Doody.
Howdy
It's like
Doody.
in the 50s, and it would always begin. The song at the beginning was "It's Howdy Doody time."
All right.
Yeah.
What
So
time
anyway,
is Howdy Doody time? All right.
that has a lot to do with Brazil. Okay.
You seem to be a little impatient now.
Well, I think Spanky's probably listening to this, and he's probably throwing his laptop across the room,
Well, that's the beauty of it.
making Spanky mad.
No, I'm not talking about that. We go off the subject, the mainstream a little bit, but then we get back to it.
Not yet.
What's the purpose of this podcast? Isn't it the Portuguese language?
Yeah.
I'm adding a whole lot to it.
Yeah, but I just think I got impatient talking about Howdy Doody.
Oh, all right. I thought you had been impatient the whole time.
Don't shout into the microphone.
I'll try not to do it.
Okay.
I'm getting excited about it.
Howdy Doody. Okay. So yeah, the R, very strange. Now, another thing very interesting about Portuguese, I think you were going to allude to it earlier before I stopped you. The T's and the D's in Portuguese, sometimes the T goes ch, and sometimes the D goes j. And you don't see that in Spanish very much. And they do this before an I or before an E that makes the sound of I. Or at the end of a word where you have to put that sound at the end because words can't end with...
Give me examples, please.
You don't know this?
No, the Spanish part.
I'm talking about Portuguese.
Oh, sorry.
I'm saying you don't see this in Spanish.
All right. I thought then you were bringing up examples in Spanish.
No. Okay. So, D's go j, T's go ch. In Spanish, the word for day is what?
In Spanish?
Yeah.
Dia?
Yeah. Dia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Portuguese, dia.
Yeah.
In Spanish, the word for ant is hormiga. No. Dia.
Dia?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's not hormiga. Yeah, so it's tia, and in Portuguese, do you know what it is? What tia is in Portuguese?
It could be ant, A-U-N-T.
In Portuguese,
Tia. That's the way they pronounce in São Paulo.
it's chia.
In Minas.
Yes, I said sometimes.
All
Okay,
right.
it depends on the dialect, but this is a defining characteristic of Brazilian Portuguese.
All
okay?
right.
So it's chia. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. City in Spanish is what? Ciudad. In Portuguese, cidade.
Yeah.
Okay?
But I'll tell you one thing. In Paraná, which is a southern state, they say cidade. Cidade.
Yes, it's not
like in
uniform
Portugal.
throughout Brazil.
I'm just adding more things.
So you find the shift, and also I noticed in Sergipe, it's also TU and DU. The number 8 in Spanish, ocho.
Mm-hmm.
It's spelled different in Portuguese. It has a T. It's oito.
Mm-hmm.
But in Sergipe, oito.
Oh, that's very common in the Northeast, yes.
Yeah.
Instead of saying muito, they say mucho. Something like
They
this.
say mucho.
Mucho, yes.
Yeah. So you have the T's and the D's shifting like this, which is very interesting. And I thought it was incredibly unique. But I talked to a linguist who was also Brazilian. And actually, I was taking linguistics at Indiana University, and the linguistics teacher was a Brazilian from Minas Gerais.
Wow.
Yeah. So I talked to her about it, and she said, actually, that's not unusual at all. In fact, you do that in English as well, except you do it before the y sound rather than the I sound. And she pointed out to me, when you say would ya, you say would ya. Could ya, could ya.
Uh-huh.
Ain't ya, ain't ya.
How about you? How about you?
How about ya? Yeah, if you're from North Dakota. So anyway, that's a way to relate it to English.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. But people who speak Spanish, of course, that's one reason why they have a harder time understanding Portuguese than the other way around. Because you don't expect when all you know is Spanish to come to a country. If someone says bon dia to you, you have no idea that means buenos dias.
Uh-huh.
But Brazilians, I find this really weird. It's completely unconscious, the sound shift. For example, and actually, well, you're a Brazilian, so I can talk to you about this. I argued with a professor in the United States about it. I think if an American doesn't make that sound shift, it won't even be noticed. I think if I say bon dia to you, would you even notice that I said something different? You might because you teach languages, but would like the person on the street even detect that anything was amiss with that?
Well,
I mean, I know in some dialects they speak that way, but would someone even think that was another dialect?
we would think you're from another state.
Okay, so you would pick up on it.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
I would.
That's interesting. Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
Of course, you're familiar.
But maybe if that was the only change, maybe the person would not pick it up.
Uh-huh.
But if there were more examples during the conversation, yeah.
Yeah, because to the Brazilian mind, or to the mind of the native speaker of Portuguese, they're not conscious that there's a sound shift. I mean, you are, of course, because you teach English, and I've talked to you about Portuguese, I think. But it's the same as in English when you say would ya, can't ya. You're not aware that you're changing the sound of T from T to Ch. I mean, maybe a foreigner listening to English would be very confused by that. But to the native English speaker, they're not even aware that there's a shift.
Let me tell you a story. You're probably right about this. When I was in Brasilia, and I caught up with my friend Richard, who had just arrived from Ohio, I took a Brazilian student of mine along with me because he was to pick up a laptop computer that Richard had brought for him. And so we all spoke English. And when he said the verb work in the past, he said worked. Worked.
An American?
No, my Brazilian student.
Oh, okay.
And then Richard realized that he had mispronounced it. And then he told me, Milton, that was the first time in my life that I noticed that the verb work, when it's pronounced in the past, it sounds like a T. We say worked. But then when he said worked, I really stopped to pay attention to it.
Uh-huh.
Is that your point?
Yeah, that it's not conscious.
Uh-huh.
And this professor that I had the argument about, he was talking because he had studied Portuguese, and he said there was a a Brazilian in the United States who was at the university who was teaching Portuguese to beginning students, and that he would, and that this Brazilian would, when he was enunciating the words, he wouldn't do the sound shift. Like he would say "Bom dia" to the students. And my professor said he was horrified when he heard that because the Brazilian was deforming the language. And I told the teacher, no, he's not. When Brazilians enunciate, that is how they enunciate. And once again, if the students were to go to Brazil and speak correct Portuguese but say dia instead of gia, to an American who studied Portuguese, that sounds like a huge... I mean, it's very striking when you hear that. You ought to quickly hear the difference. But I think most Brazilians wouldn't pick up on that.
Well...
It's hard for you because you've studied languages, I guess. But I think someone has never studied a language and doesn't know much about it, just someone living their day-to-day life in Brazil, just a man on the street, I don't think they would.
You may be right. I don't know. Because whenever I speak, I think of myself. Because I'm always aware of these differences, or I try to be aware or note them and notice them.
Because to speak English, you can't, instead of saying teacher, you can't say chicha.
Yeah.
You long ago learned. There are a lot of students who do that, though.
Yeah.
I remember there was this one girl, and I was trying to, actually it was at a bowling alley, it wasn't even in a class, and I was explaining to her, like she had studied English a little, and she was saying the word teacher, and she kept saying chicha. And then I gave her this big like exposition about the T sometimes changing, and sometimes it's th and sometimes it's ch, and I had to repeat th, and I had to repeat ch to make sure she had the sounds correct, and I like worked with her very slowly. I said, okay,
1 hour,
a few minutes. I said, okay, teacher. And then she said, chicha. Okay, so then I decided I'm going to simplify it. We'll just go bit by bit, okay? So I said, t, and she said, t, e, sure, okay. T, sure. She said, t, sure, okay? Teacher, chicha. So she wasn't even...
So you were a bad teacher.
I think I was a good teacher. But she just hadn't become consciously aware of how she was speaking. If you've ever seen the musical My Fair Lady, there's a scene that's very similar, teaching this woman to speak standard English, where the professor is trying, he's trying to break everything down for her, but then when she has to say it all together, it's just awful. You probably haven't seen My Fair Lady, though.
No.
Okay. So anyway, that's a very interesting feature of Portuguese.
All right.
And one of the most defining. And that's, I think, what you were going to say as one of the reasons why Spanish speakers have a hard time understanding Portuguese.
I thought you knew it.
I knew what?
That?
No, you were going to give a reason why.
No, I was not going to give a reason. It sounded as if I was going to give a reason, but I was going to ask you why.
Oh, okay.
I just know that it's easier for Brazilians to understand someone who speaks Spanish, depending how fast they go and depending where they come from. But I think in general, it's easier for Brazilians to understand them better than otherwise.
Another reason, besides those sound shifts, which just by itself could make it very hard, is that Portuguese has a lot more vowel sounds.
Oh.
In Spanish, you have A, E, I, O, U are the vowels, and they go A, E, O, U. And Portuguese has those sounds too, right? Yes, yes, it does. But first of all of those can also be nasal. Spanish doesn't have nasal, so you go. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing these quite right. E, on. Did that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Spanish also has the diphthongs. Portuguese has all the same diphthongs as Spanish, including the same semivowels and the same triphthongs. But it also has them nasalized. Where you have C-I-O-N in Spanish, you have C, A with a till on top. No, C cedilla, A with a till on top, O. And that Like, what would be a good...
Give examples, Kins. I think that's better.
That's what I'm saying. What would be a good example?
All right.
And what comes to mind
Sorry.
is sugestão. In Spanish it would be sugestão, right? Something like that. And in Portuguese, sugestão. Which, of course, a Spanish speaker hearing that might get a little bit scared. Word for dog, we talked about the more formal word for dog, cão. So you've got the nasals. Then with both the E and the O, you've got open and closed. You've got the closed E, which is the same as the Spanish E, but there's also the open one, which is like the word bed in English.
Mm-hmm.
The open O, which we don't quite have in English, but it's like O. Am I saying that right? O.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The closed O, like Spanish, open O.
We have an interjection of surprise. Oh, as well. Oops.
Yeah, the waveform went way off the screen in Audacity. But anyway, so that makes it, even if a Spanish speaker can understand it, like for a Portuguese speaker, it's very easy to explain. These are the 5 vowels. The A always goes A in Spanish, the E always goes A, and so on. But then to tell a Spanish speaker, when you speak Portuguese, the E, sometimes it goes A, like in Spanish. Sometimes it goes when it's nasalized. and sometimes it goes when it's open. And then if it's on the end of a word, it goes E, like the letter I.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Spanish speakers then have to, they might know the words, but they have no idea what they're supposed to do with the vowels.
Yeah.
There are so many different vowels. So that also makes it hard. But it's an interesting phenomenon because you would think, just without knowing Portuguese and the situation of Portuguese and Spanish, it just seems intuitive that you can't have one language that's intelligible to speakers of another language, but that it doesn't go the other way. But it actually can be like that. To some degree, obviously, Spanish speakers can understand a lot of Portuguese. And when things are written, it's easier for speakers of both. When Fidel Castro visited Brazil way back in 1990, I think, 1990 or 91, and he was interviewed, he wasn't even translated. He was the person, the interviewer was speaking Portuguese. That was translated to Spanish for Castro, and Castro answered in Spanish, and that wasn't translated. That was played exactly as he said on TV, and people had no trouble understanding him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. Now, grammatically, there's some interesting features of Portuguese that I really like. One of them is the future subjunctive, which you don't find first of all, you don't find it in Latin at all. So this is something that arose later. You find it in very archaic Spanish. In fact, Don Quixote,
Mm-hmm.
or as he's called in Portuguese, Don Quixote.
Mm-hmm.
There are passages, I haven't read Don Quixote, but I have read that the future subjunctive is used in Don Quixote, which I don't even know when it was written, but it was written hundreds of years ago, and it's used to portray snobby, old-fashioned, overly formal Spanish.
Can you give me an example?
Well, no, it's Spanish and it's archaic. There's no way.
No, I mean one example, one sentence in the future subjunctive.
I'm going to, but first
Okay.
I want to talk about.
All right.
I want to talk about how unique it is.
All right.
Okay. So I just think so it existed way back then, and I've heard that in Chilean journalism in the newspapers they will sometimes use the future subjunctive, but that is specific only to Chile and only to newspapers in Chile, newspapers and magazines. So it's interesting because in the other Romance languages, you find, and so the future subjunctive occurred when before Spanish and Portuguese diverged from each other. But it didn't occur any earlier than that. It's not in any of the other Romance languages, at least not the main ones. There might be some Italian dialects that do something similar. So in the other Romance languages, you have the present subjunctive, and you have the imperfect subjunctive. And people who've studied Spanish or French or Italian know all about these. People who don't, it's a little harder to explain, but Yeah, in fact, it's so hard to explain, I'm not even going to try to explain it. But I will say that for the future subjunctive only occurs... You would think that this future subjunctive would occur in a sentence such as... I can't think of an example. I mean, to say something really artificial, I will want that he goes would be in the future subjunctive. Once again, no one's going to understand this if they haven't studied a Romance language. But you don't. You actually use it after if and when clauses. You say, when I go there would be quando eu for lá, because the future is uncertain, so you're using the subjunctive. Or if I go there, se eu for lá. And those are the only two cases where you use it. You use if, when, and other words that can replace if or when. So it's very nifty. And yeah, so I just think that's a very interesting feature of Portuguese. And it's also interesting because it was abandoned so early in Spanish, and yet in Portuguese, even people who've never learned to read and write use it perfectly. So that's future subjunctive. The other thing which is very interesting and unique in Portuguese...
Before you say that, I'd like to say something else. Are you impatient?
I know that any minute now you're going to say, Kinsey, I have to stop because I'm going to sleep.
No, but
I have to rush through this before you lose consciousness.
All right, but I do want to make a point, bring something up here.
Okay.
Well, since we're in the subject of languages, I was speaking with a Chinese woman once.
But that's not Portuguese, that's Chinese.
Okay, but that's languages. And I'd like you to add something to it because I'm sure you're going to have something to say about it. And you can tell me if I am wrong or not. But this is something I heard from a Chinese woman. And she was saying to me, we were speaking English, that it takes a lot of more energy for her to speak English rather than Chinese Mandarin. And one of the reasons being that the Chinese language is very simple when it comes to expressing yourself. For example, she would say, I go school today, I go school tomorrow, I go school yesterday. Whereas in Portuguese, you would need a far more complex structure to express yourself in the past, present, or future. Mm-hmm. The same with English. Isn't that exciting? So she would spend a lot less energy when she was speaking Chinese.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. That was the interesting thing I thought I wanted to add to the program.
Yeah, from what I understand, Chinese has, instead of adding endings to words and changing forms, it just has lots of little small syllabic units that mean different things, so you don't have to transform anything.
Uh-huh.
I think. I don't know. I've never studied Chinese.
So let's rush through things.
Are you tired?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Okay, I'm getting tired.
Well, you're just going to have to suck it up. Well, look at the waveform.
Yeah. I want to do it again.
It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is the personal infinitive. Isn't the personal infinitive cool?
Okay. Let's move on.
Oh, what?
Huh?
The other Romance languages do not have a personal infinitive. Pretty sure Latin didn't either.
Go ahead.
You said let's move on.
I'm joking again.
Well, don't you like the personal infinitive?
Kinsey, I don't know anything about Portuguese grammar. I think you got the wrong co-host. I've told you a million times. Okay, I'm not going to say this.
Okay. Infinitives in Romance languages end with, like, they're verbs, they mean to something. Like, to run would be the infinitive of the verb run in English.
Okay. So far, so good.
I'm not asking you. But, and anyone, once again, anyone who studied a Romance language knows that, like, in Spanish, you've got, like, ser. You've got, in French, you've got chanter. In Italian, you've got, I don't know, stare. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, those are the infinitives. Now, what you can do in Portuguese, which is really cool, you can put a personal ending, which will show if which person it is, like first, second, or third, and if it's singular or plural. The verb to speak is falar. You put mos at the end, you have falamos. Now, you can't do that in Spanish, but if you could, the equivalent would be hablarmos. So it's not a tense. It's not putting the verb in a tense, and it's not giving the verb a subject like it's a main conjugated verb. It's still the infinitive. And this is so cool. So what you can do is, in cases where there's ambivalence, where you have an infinitive, but you don't, but it's ambivalent. You don't know what the subject of it is, and the subject can be different things. You just slap the ending on it, and you get rid of the problem. For example, in English, and English is put together quite differently. But if you have a sentence like you're talking to a group of people at a party, and you say it's necessary to go. To go. What does that mean? Are you saying are you talking to those people and telling them that they should go? It's necessary, that you go, or are you saying it's necessary that we go? You don't know. In English, we solve that by putting for us, for me, for you. It's necessary for me to go. It's necessary for us to go. Okay? In Portuguese, you do that with a little ending at the end. Really cool, huh? Yeah, Milton's nodding. And I guess one final thing. In Rio, what do they do in Rio? Shh. Yeah, lots of the S's turn to shh. Like specifically an S at the end of a word, at the end of a syllable, goes shh.
They sound like a pressure cooker, blowing steam out of it.
I've heard they sound like they're picking up a lot of radio static.
I prefer the pressure cooker.
Like, if you have something like the things, which in normal Portuguese would be as coisas, in Rio they would say as coisas. As meninas estão aqui hoje neste dia. I don't know. So that's what's interesting, though, is that apparently what happened is after Brazil, after the main Portuguese migration wave hit Brazil, in Portugal, they started doing this. No one knows why. The whole Portuguese country started going shh.
Yeah.
And then Napoleon invaded Portugal. The royal family had to flee, and the royal family went shh, shh, shh.
They ended up in Rio.
And everyone's like, oh, I guess that's the way to speak proper Portuguese. And so now everyone laughs at people in Rio because they think they're speaking proper Portuguese, but they're actually speaking it all wrong. And also the city of Belém has some other history tied to later Portugal, so they also just go shh in Belém.
When the sound is subtle, it's okay. Yes, you can put up with it. When it's too much, give me a break.
Yeah, so you can always like within a few seconds you can tell if someone's from Rio.
Yeah, it's like they open their mouth and know that they're from there.
And it's really, because you've already got the T's going ch, and the D's going j, then you've got all this sh mixed in. It does not sound like that. That would really throw off a native Spanish speaker flying into Rio. They're like, what on earth? Sounds like German or something. Yeah.
An interesting thing, and it's very cultural. Everybody in the rest of the country thinks people from Rio are really smart Alex, and they really want to, take advantage over you. So there are clear-cut examples of that, and my father has experienced one of these things. But of course, not everybody's like that. This is a stereotype. But the way some people talk in Rio, you can tell from the very beginning their attitude, whether they're a smart Alex or not, or.
Yeah, there's besides the sh, there's something more subtle in the way they speak, and I can't describe. I can just pick up on it, not just the shs, but there's something else going on with the voice which is specific to Rio.
Yeah, it's their accent.
Yeah, so you pick up on that too.
Mm-hmm. And needless to say, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's the beach accent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we've. This has been a long episode, but it's a big language.
Okay, I want to say one final comment. If anyone from Rio listens to this, the one thing I don't like, and I want to make it clear, yes, because I don't want to show any prejudice toward anybody. I have nothing against people from Rio. Sometimes I don't like the attitude, but that has to do with the certain groups, certain people there. Okay, but that's all I have to say.
So this is Kinsey.
And this is Milton.
And you've been listening to
Brazilianisms,
episode
19.